he was compassionate for those families, that he understood it. I'm looking at them, and Madam Secretary, I don't see them as being here in support of those 4 years of Joe Biden and the ranking member's administration.
No, and it's interesting because when President Trump was here in his last term, he opened up an office at ICE to help these families, to give them information on support, mental health account that they might need, or also knowledge on court cases of the individuals who had killed their children. And when Joe Biden came into office, he closed down that Voices office, completely shuttered it, because that office also tracked how many victims there really were in the country that had been affected by illegal alien crime. So when I came in, I didn't have any data set to use because Joe Biden and his administration had completely quit keeping track of the amount of victims here. We're grateful that they're here today. We're grateful that the Voices office is back open again, and that these families now can know where their children's killers are. They can follow that, and they can make sure that they hold people accountable to not enforcing the law.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from New York.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secretary Noem, we have seen a consistent pattern of lies and deceit from the Department of Homeland Security under your leadership. I'm not just talking about the false claims that you and others at DHS have spread in attempting to smear Alex Preddy, Renee Good, and other victims of ICE's deadly tactics, all of which are well known. I'm talking about the dishonesty and deception that has become commonplace throughout your agency. One of the most brazen incidents occurred last week at Columbia University, where 5 DHS agents conned their way into a university-owned apartment building at 6 a.m. They were pretending to be police officers searching for a missing child. But this was nothing more than a ruse to gain access to the apartment of a student originally from Azerbaijan, Eli Agayeva, a senior studying neuroscience and politics. A public security officer on the scene asked for a warrant, but none was produced, and they proceeded to arrest Eli. It is black letter law that a government agent cannot lie about searching for a missing child to gain entry to a residence. It's literally the example they give in the criminal procedure textbook. But your agents deliberately misrepresented themselves to gain access to Eli's apartment. Fortunately, hours after Eli was taken into custody, following a public outcry and a meeting with Mayor Mamdani, President Trump intervened and secured her release. If Eli had been among the worst of the worst that you claim to target, surely the president would not have pushed for her release. But this is just one example of an out-of-control department under your leadership. My own office was the victim of your agents' deceptive tactics last year, when DHS agents entered my office under false pretenses, claiming that my staff was, quote, harboring rioters, when video clearly showed this was not the case. A statement issued by DHS claimed the agents were doing a, quote, security check. And yet the video that has been released shows them handcuffing a staffer, demanding access to non-public areas of my office without a warrant, denying that they even needed a warrant when challenged by a member of my staff, and never once asking about the safety and security of my staff. More lies. Although both of these incidents are traumatic for those involved, at least everyone is alive and well. Unfortunately, the same cannot be said for Nurul Amin Shah Alam, an elderly, nearly blind refugee from Burma living in Buffalo. 2 weeks ago, he was left abandoned by U.S. Customs and Border Patrol agents outside of Tim Hortons coffee shop an hour after they closed, in the cold and in the dark, with no shoes on, miles away from his home. 5 days later, he was found dead. Mr. Shah Alam escaped the genocide in his home country just to die here because Border Patrol could not be bothered to take him home or to tell his family where they had released him. When the story came out in the press, DHS claimed that they had dropped Mr. Shah Alam at a, quote, warm, safe location near his last known address. Your agents also claimed Mr. Shah Alam showed, quote, no signs of distress, mobility issues, or disabilities requiring special assistance. These were obvious lies. The coffee shop was closed. It wasn't safe and warm. He was nearly blind. He required special assistance, but your agents callously left him to defend for himself with deadly consequences. This is a clear case of your officers failing to fulfill the basic duty of care. And as a result, this man is dead. So, Secretary Noem, I want to know if there will be any accountability for the incidents I have described today. Will the agents who lied at Columbia face discipline, or the officers who forced their way into my office? What about the officers in Buffalo who abandoned a barefoot blind refugee in the middle of a freezing night miles away from his home. Will any of them face accountability?
Sir, you talk about several different specific cases. What I would say is some of your facts are wrong on some of those cases, but also that they are all being reviewed. We do have a review process in the ICE agency within that
It
department
sounds like
that
you're
goes through and does an OPR, which is the Office of Professional Responsibility, make sure that all protocols were followed in every
Right.
single
We
case.
know-
In the
we
case
know
of
that
the
in the-
Columbia
We
student,
know, reclaiming my time, we know that in the cases of Renee Good and Alex Preddy, proper protocols were not followed. Now, Erie County is currently mounting an investigation. Will you at the very least commit today that DHS will cooperate with the investigation by local authorities in New York of Mr. Shah Alam's death? Yes or no?
which case are you talking about, sir?
Shah Alam, the one who was
We will
released.
certainly look at that, but I want you to know that the
Will
investigations.
you cooperate with the local
investigations-
authorities? Yes
I
or
don't
no?
conduct the investigations that are outside
There
of
is-
within the umbrella of ICE and CBC.
I'll take that as a no.
The FBI
Unfortunately,
leads
I'll
these
take that as a no.
investigations.
Unfortunately, that has become a pattern we've come to expect in this administration. Secretary Noem, your agents are running amok, and you're doing nothing to hold them accountable. Everything that we are seeing, the
Mr. Chairman,
lies,
regular order.
yes, the cruelty, that is all happening on your watch and in your name. You should be ashamed. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from California, Mr. McClintock, Chairman of the Subcommittee on Immigration, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know we have a number of angel families here today whose loved ones were killed because of the open borders policies of the Democrats. Could I ask them to stand for a moment and be recognized so that we can honor their loved ones and get a sense of the human toll that 4 years of open borders took on our country?
Thank you.
God bless you all. Thank
all.
you. Madam Secretary, the Democrats told us that the only way to secure our borders was we had to grant amnesty and citizenship to the millions of illegals that they had allowed into our country. Was this true?
No,
And how do we know it wasn't true?
because we enforced the law and sent the message that in the United States now our border was going to be secure and we would ensure that, and it happened. People quit coming. They quit coming to that border because we told them it was closed, and we made sure that when people did cross the border that there was consequences for breaking federal law.
During the Biden years, approximately how many foreign nationals illegally entered our country, either as gotaways or through the CB1 app or the catch and release policies of Biden?
We don't necessarily know, Congressman. We don't necessarily know because the invasion was facilitated by the federal government during that time. And while all of our CBP agents were pulled to process people, to make sandwiches, to take care of the masses and thousands of people crossing the border, huge swaths of our border were left unsecured.
So
And the
we don't
cartels
know.
took advantage of that to
We
traffic.
don't know how many millions
know.
of illegals. We know at least 10 million because we watched them either cross the border or we released them under the Biden administration. But the Inspector General reported that they also approved entry visas for 13 million foreign nationals without conducting any interviews or background checks as required by law. Do we know anything about those 13 million visa approvals that were given without any kind of vetting?
We don't. We're going back and tracking ones we have documentation on, but most of them are not at the addresses that they left, the contacts that they may have done. And all of our programs under the Department of Homeland Security were violated and abused and perverted as well. For example, when we came in, there was 400,000 asylum cases. That was a year before we came in. He abused it so bad during that invasion that when I first got sworn in as secretary, there was a backlog of 1.5 million asylum cases.
And do
They
we
all
know,
need to be
do we
reviewed.
know how many are still even in the country?
No, we don't.
How many criminals were allowed in?
Oh, thousands of them. We know for a fact that other countries emptied out their prisons, their mental institutions, encouraged people to go, and those individuals who would pay a cartel member to move them across the country certainly came into our country, broke that first law, which made them a criminal. And then after that, many times.
And could you tell us again just how many illegal aliens have been deported under your leadership or have been self-deported?
There's been over 700,000 that have been detained and arrested and are being deported. I want to remind everybody at this committee too, that every single one of these individuals that's detained has final orders of removal. They can leave today.
And by the way,
as soon as they get to that detention center,
how
they
many
have
of
the option
those
to go home.
that you've deported now have records of a criminal or arrests or convictions?
70% of those in our detention centers have criminal records.
So roughly over 500,000.
Yes,
So you've effectively removed more than 500,000 criminal illegal aliens from our streets and sent them back to their own countries or detained them.
yes.
And what's that done to our crime rate?
Oh, our crime rate has been phenomenal. In fact, we have the lowest murder rate in our country that we've had since it's been recorded. Over 125 years, our murder rates are at the lowest that it is. The drug epidemic is getting better and improving. We need it to do more so we don't lose more of our children. But we specifically under ICE as well and HSI target human traffickers and child pedophiles and those that would perpetuate assaults against our children.
The chairman said there were 11 states refusing to enforce federal immigration law. I think it's worth noting there were also 11 states in the old Confederacy. And they too asserted the doctrine of nullification, that states could ignore or nullify federal laws that they didn't like. That's fatal to a federal republic like ours. Abraham Lincoln understood that. Andrew Jackson understood that. Donald Trump understands that. It's what lit the fuse for the Civil War. How do these sanctuary states thwart enforcement of our federal immigration laws?
They don't cooperate with us. They don't share background information or arrest information or when they're releasing someone from their prisons or jails. They turn them on the streets. And then when we are out doing enforcement actions, they don't help us with security. Many of these local officials, driven by political leaders, governors or mayors, don't come when we respond, when we ask for backup for our law enforcement as well.
And what's the purpose of these so-called sanctuary cities and states? Are they protecting all illegal aliens or only those illegal aliens that have been arrested for other crimes?
I would say they're protecting them all. They're allowing them to stay on their programs and to live in their housing and facilitate it and to be on benefits programs that take taxpayer dollars out of their communities away from American citizens and facilitate a way of life for people that didn't follow our legal process. I know that they're very concerned. The Democrat Party is very concerned about illegal aliens in this country. I will tell you, as a Secretary of Homeland Security, it's my job to get up every day to be concerned for American citizens.
Well,
they are my priority.
Thank you for the job you're doing.
Gentleman yields back. Mr. Coleman, I should have said this earlier. If you need any help or a little break, when you want to go in the back room with Delilah, that's fine. I see Delilah decided to take a nap. Let the record show, I think she fell asleep during Mr. Nadler's question, not Mr. McClintock. The chair now recognizes the gentlelady from California.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Secretary Noem, for being here with us this morning. You know, there's an old adage that states there are no bad dogs, just bad owners. One of the questions we have is, are there bad agencies or just bad owners and bad leadership? And so, you know, I have a concern about much of what's happened in the enforcement region internally in the United States. And I'd like to show a video, the video number 1, if the staff could play that. Now, this was in January. ICE agents forced their way into the home of a United States citizen, Mr. Scott Dow, without a warrant. As you could see from the video, they pulled him into sub-freezing temperatures in his underwear, held him for a number of hours, and finally released him. You know, the Fourth Amendment says the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and provides for a warrant requirement to enter a person's home. Now, that was bad leadership in my judgment, because, not in your part, the Attorney General has issued a memorandum asserting, I think incorrectly, I mean obviously incorrectly, that no warrant is required to break into somebody's house, contrary to what the Fourth Amendment provides, and that an administrative warrant, which is basically note to self, go ahead and break into anybody's house you want, is what's sufficient. So my question really is not about the illegal breaking and entering into that U.S. citizen's house, but what is the policy about taking an old man in his underwear out of a house in sub-freezing temperatures. Do you train agents not to do that, or are they trained to do that?
All of our law enforcement officers go through extensive training. Our ICE officers go through 58 days of training and 56 days of training. They have 28 of those on the job.
Okay,
But
so
beyond that, they are trained in constitutional law, which you referenced, so they all know
I
that. They
really,
know
the
how
question
they
was
handle
about
process.
manhandling an old
Hands-on.
man
And
in
that is they are
sub-freezing
trained in
weather.
those
So they're
situations
trained to
as
do
well.
that?
They're trained in how to interdict someone, to detain them, and to take them.
This man had done nothing. Let me show you another video. Show another video.
Get out of get out. No, get out, no, down. Go, drive. Get back.
So this disabled woman, she's a U.S. citizen, Miss Raymond, she wasn't protesting anything. She was on her way to a doctor's appointment. She has a traumatic brain injury. And as you can see from the video, your agents surrounded her car. They pointed their weapons at her. They broke her window and they dragged her from the car. Let me show you another video.
Oh, what? Y'all some crazy. Y'all got no heart, for real. No heart. No heart.
Now, in this video, masked agents blocked the road with their SUV and used it to hit an American citizen driving in the right lane on her way to work after dropping off her child. As you can see, they drew their weapons. They drug her into the street to arrest her. She didn't know they were federal law enforcement because they were wearing masks. So the question I have is, are agents trained to break the windows of people whose cars they encounter and drag them out forcibly without asking questions? Is that their training?
Congresswoman, our officers are all trained for situations to where they're interacting with the public and where they are detaining someone or arresting them. What I would say is they always goes with their presence is when the enforcement action begins, the officer's presence, and then verbal commands. If an individual doesn't respond to verbal commands, then they go to soft techniques, which you see utilized throughout the country, and our officers follow that protocol and are trained in that protocol. You talked earlier about administrative warrants. Administrative warrants are the tools that you gave us. Congress gave us that tool in immigration law to use to go and detain individuals who are in this country that have had final removal orders.
I will just
And
note
also what
that is garbage law. The Constitution
the Supreme
trumps.
Court backed it up. The
You're
Supreme Court
incorrect.
affirmed it.
There's a long line of cases,
the only
Mr.
tool we have,
Chairman.
ma'am,
The
and we
real
only-
lawyers
Well,
on this
I don't know if it's-
committee know that the Fourth
Describe it
Amendment
how you want, but
provides for
but
a
it is the
warrant
law.
requirement.
It is federal law. The gentlelady's time has expired. The chair is now recognized.
Mr. Chairman, could I just do a UC request?
Gentleman is recognized for unanimous consent.
This comes from The Guardian. Worst of the worst, most U.S. immigrants targeted for deportation in 2025, 73% had no criminal charges, documents reveal.
Without objection, chair is now recognizes, Madam Secretary, how many detainers in 2025 did ICE issue to local law enforcement?
It was 201,340.
And I just want to be clear, that means over 200,000 individuals are in the country illegally. You have a notice, final order to remove those individuals. They've been charged with an additional crime, some other crime, harming kids, stealing stuff, armed robbery, maybe even something worse. They're in a jail or detention center, and you send a notice, a detainer notice to that jail or detention center saying, if you're going to release this individual, give us a heads up so we can come apprehend him at the jail. Is that all accurate?
That is accurate, yes.
Okay. Now, and in 68.5% of the country will work with you on that. Most of the country, 2/3 of the country. But a third of the country won't because they're run by left-wing crazy elected officials. And they say, no, we're not gonna work with ICE. So how many times in the same time period, how many times last year, 2025, were your detainers not honored?
17,864 detainers were declined.
Declined. And now some of them, they may have declined early, but many of those people are out on the street.
Right.
Is that fair to say?
That's correct.
So in these jurisdictions, they say, we don't care that federal law says there's a final order of removal for this individual, and we don't care that this person's been charged with an additional crime. We're going to turn them out on the street, release this individual out on the street, and make you send 6 agents, 12 agents, whatever, to get the bad guy on the street when you could have sent one to the jail and just made it easy. Is that right?
That is correct.
And let me just ask this, is that the dumbest thing you've ever heard?
It is the dumb. I've heard a lot of dumb things.
Well,
in this job, but
I've heard a
that
lot of
is
dumb
one
things from the
them,
left
yes.
as well, but that is certainly near the top,
Mhm.
right? Now, here's what's interesting. They don't want it just to remain 1/3 of the country. They want it to apply everywhere.
Mhm.
And you know how we know that? 1 month ago today, Leader Hakeem Jeffries and Leader Schumer sent a letter to Speaker Johnson and Leader Thune. And in that letter, they have 10 demands that they want. That's why they shut down the government, they're saying. One of the reasons they shut down the government is they want that policy, which only applies to 31% of the country right now, to apply nationwide. And I just want to read it because it's point number 4 in their letter 1 month ago. Protect sensitive locations, prohibit funds from being used to conduct enforcement near these sensitive locations. So after they release them, they don't want you to be able to arrest the guy who may have been charged with abusing kids, the detainer wasn't honored, who's released to the street. They don't want you to arrest him near medical facilities, schools, childcare facilities. So if he's hanging out near a childcare facility, he's been charged with abusing kids and he's here illegally, or a school, you're not supposed to get him there, according to what Leader Jeffries and Leader Schumer said. And I'll ask you the same question. Is that the dumbest thing you've ever heard?
Yes, that is one way to encourage criminals to congregate where children are, is to say that a school would be a safe zone.
And what happens when they don't honor detainers? They release bad guys who were supposed to, according to federal law, be turned over to ICE, and you're supposed to remove them. They release them. What happens is exactly what I talked about in our opening statement. You have guys like this Ortiz fellow right next door in Fairfax County, Virginia, who was here illegally. You all sent a detainer, and they said last September, nope, we're not going to honor it. They released him to the streets, and he killed someone when it could have been easy. Someone would still be alive today. And as I said before, be one less angel family in this country if they would simply do the common sense thing. But no, they want to expand it, and they want to put back in this protected areas thing. Here's the other thing that's interesting. They all defend what happened in Minneapolis when all the protesters and rioters, or whatever you want to call them, went into the church. So they're allowed to go into the church, and somehow that's fine. They can disrupt the church service, but you're not allowed to go near a church to arrest a bad guy who's been charged with another crime and released to the street. Again, unbelievably stupid. And that is why tomorrow, the House Judiciary Committee is going to mark up the Sanctuary Shutdown Act of 2026. And hopefully we can pass that, get it to the Senate, pass it, and get President Trump to sign it, because it is the right thing to do. And anyone with common sense understands that. I apologize, I went too long. I'll give you the last 20 seconds.
No, I just appreciate that. And I agree with you wholeheartedly that a lot of what comes at us for criticisms is simply not truth. Every day and it's interesting, Chairman, as you were talking, I was thinking about the last committee hearing I was at just a couple months ago in December, that all the Democrats held up pictures of illegal aliens and were defending illegal aliens and talked about them. Now today they're defending citizens because they know they shouldn't be putting illegal aliens in front of citizens. They've changed their method. Now they realize that when they're fighting for people who shouldn't be in this country to begin with, that's a losing statement with the American people, that common sense would tell you somebody who lives here that is a citizen should be prioritized over someone from another country.
Well, but
that's common
Madam
sense.
Secretary, they're not only fighting for people here illegally, they're releasing the bad guys to the streets, for goodness sake.
They are.
That is the problem. With that, I now recognize the ranking member for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're fighting for American citizens, Madam Secretary.
Today
because,
you are.
because your ICE agents shot them in the face and killed them. And each person you see up on this dais today represents 800,000 American citizens. And you should know that as a former member of Congress. Now, her brother said that Renee Good was someone who could make you believe things were going to be okay despite all the hardship because she chose optimism. Alex Preddy was a Boy Scout, a choir member, an outdoorsman from Green Bay who lavished attention on his beloved dog, Jewel. His sister called her brother someone who had a way of lighting up every room that he walked into. But only a few hours after they were gunned down by your agents, you called Renee a domestic terrorist. You said Alex committed an act of domestic terrorism. Alex's parents responded to your calling their son a domestic terrorist. They said, the sickening lies told about our son by the administration are reprehensible and disgusting. And I want to give you a chance before the entire country to correct your false and defamatory claim. Based on what you know today, Madam Secretary, were Renee Good and Alex Preddy domestic terrorists?
Congressman, what happened in Minnesota in those two incidents was an absolute tragedy.
Were
And I
they
offer my
domestic terrorists, as you said to the
offer my
country?
condolences to their families, because I know that their lives will never be the same after that happened.
Is that an apology for what you said?
We, in those incidents, offer as much information as we can from officers and agents on the ground in a chaotic scene that gets.
I'll repeat
relayed
my question,
to
reclaiming
us
my
so that
time.
we can
Based on
communicate
what
with
you
American
know
people.
today, Madam Secretary, based on what you know today, were Renee Good and Alex Preddy domestic terrorists?
As you know, there's ongoing investigations that are being led by the
Oh, but you
FBI,
didn't wait for the
and there's-
investigation, did you? You didn't wait for the evidence. You proclaimed that they were domestic terrorists at the time. Why did you do that?
And you didn't wait to attack our law enforcement.
Why did you do
officers
that?
are going into a dangerous situation.
Why did you call them
One thing I
domestic
would say
terrorists?
Is our ICE officers and our HSI officers that day risked their lives to protect that scene. So evidence could be reclaimed. So it could be used in the investigation. Because those violent rioters that
So
were
you're
there
proud of the fact
could
that you
have-
called them domestic terrorists? Is that what
those
you're telling America?
individuals, HSI officers put their lives on the line to protect that scene, so evidence so we could have.
Yes, they do.
thorough
Yes, they
and
do. But you
accurate
told a lie
investigation.
about them. You said that they were domestic terrorists. Do you regret that?
I offer my condolences to those family, and again.
Based on what
we'll
you
tell
know
them that
today,
the
were Renee
chaotic scene
Good
on
and
the
Alex
ground,
Preddy domestic terrorists?
There's ongoing investigations, and so I
So
cannot.
you still don't know. You think that's an open question?
I would think you would want there to still be investigations going into these situations.
Well, you
So we'll
stated the
continue to work on
conclusion
that.
2 hours after they were killed that they were domestic terrorists. I wanted to give you an opportunity to correct the record, not just for their family, but for everybody in America who believes in the truth and fairness and honesty.
In every situation, as facts come out, we relay.
You know,
them and
your acting
communicate
ICE
them to the
director,
families.
Todd Lyons, came before Congress. He said he had no knowledge whatsoever that Alex Preddy and Renee Good were domestic terrorists. None. This is your guy. He said that. He admitted that that was wrong. Why won't you admit it?
We'll tell you the investigation is still ongoing, and we'll.
So do you regret speaking before the investigation?
I would say that in those situations.
You regret
the
that?
chaotic scene on the ground, we relay information to the American people that they're asking for. And as the things change, situations change.
People
we
were
continue
asking
to
you whether they were
communicate that
domestic
as well.
terrorists?
We
And you
continue to
decided that they
communicate-
were before the investigation?
As we learn more, we.
You don't want to say anything to their families?
I did. I said, I condolences.
For what?
And I'm
How about
hurt
an
because
apology for what you said about their loved
My
ones?
heart is with them, and we will continue to stand with them as they get a complete investigation into these situations.
All right. Well, let me ask you some questions of law if you can't handle the facts. Very simple questions of law, not trick questions. Is it lawful for federal agents to shoot and kill a person for engaging in peaceful protest and nothing else? That's a yes or no
Say
question.
Each instances in peaceful protest, no, it's not.
Okay,
But I would
good.
say
Is it
if-
lawful for federal agents to shoot and kill a person for filming them on a public street? Yes or no?
No,
Okay. Is it lawful for federal agents to shoot and kill a person just because that person is lawfully carrying a holstered firearm under the Second Amendment in state law?
no,
And finally, yes or no, is it lawful for federal agents to shoot an innocent person or even a criminal suspect just for driving away from them, according to the Supreme Court?
no.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you got the law right, and I hope you would rethink what you said about two good, honest, faithful American citizens and what that means to their families when you say that as Secretary of Homeland Security. And your ICE guy has already retracted that, and you should retract it too. I yield back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Arizona is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Secretary Noem, for being here today. Also, I want to acknowledge the Angel families. There are very few jurisdictions that don't have Angel families. Very, very few. Thank you for your courage and your willingness to be here today. I am grateful that the ranking member at least knows, Secretary Noem, that under your jurisdiction, there's the Coast Guard, there's FEMA, and a whole host of other agencies, TSA being one. He listed some of them. He's chosen not to fund them. How outrageous is that? How outrageous? So Secretary Noem, before I turn to my questions, I want to establish the insanity of what sanctuary jurisdictions are doing and why it matters. And by the way, I'll just say, Mr. Chairman, on the CDL issue, I have a bill 7200. I'd love to bring that in because it would require states do E-Verify before they grant a CDL. We might save some more lives. Let's start with the ICE immigration detainers. From October 2022 through February 2025, state and local jails declined more than 25,000 ICE detainers. In more than 1,400 additional cases, they failed to provide proper notice before releasing an alien from custody. That's not symbolic resistance. That's operational non-cooperation. It undermines federal law. It increases the risk to law enforcement. It increases the risk to the person arrested even. And it results in the release of removable criminal aliens back into American communities. This administration, the Trump administration, the Noem administration is enforcing the tools Congress provided. We expect cooperation, not obstruction. The consequences are not hypothetical. ICE data from FY 2025 shows that sanctuary jurisdictions released offenders with homicide charges or convictions, and I'm going to highlight just several examples. Rami Jalal Nisan, an Iraqi national with 28 arrests. Chicago ignored 3 ICE detainers. 15 of his arrests occurred after the first detainer was issued. Waldemar Zibik, a Polish national convicted of attempted murder after stabbing his wife and daughter, was released despite an ICE detainer. Alexander Pascual Pedro, arrested for aggravated criminal sexual abuse of a child, released despite a detainer, later convicted of solicitation to meet a child, and then arrested again for domestic violence. Ismael Gomez Urzua, deported 4 times, 3 detainers ignored despite arrest for narcotics, fleeing police, and weapons violations. Dennis Humberto Navarrete Romero, an illegal immigrant, was arrested for many crimes but released into the community repeatedly. He went on to allegedly rape a woman on a trail in Fairfax County. Abraham Gonzalez, Venezuelan gang member, arrested in Denver for aggravated assault, motor vehicle theft, and felony menacing. Denver gave ICE only 1 hour's notice before forcing officers to arrest him in a public parking lot where an officer was assaulted. Those aren't policy disagreements. Those are public safety failures, a willful desire to hold the community or put the community in danger. Beyond those individual cases, we've seen tragic losses around this country, not just of the Angel families here today, but Laken Riley, killed by a Venezuelan national unlawfully present in the U.S. Rachel Morin, a 37-year-old mother in Maryland, raped and killed by an illegal alien from El Salvador, later convicted of first-degree murder. Jocelyn Nungary, 12-year-old girl in Houston, sexually assaulted and murdered by 2 Venezuelan nationals unlawfully present in the U.S. They have been charged with capital murder. And we could go on and on. So, Madam Secretary, what is the value of an ICE detainer, and why is it such an important public safety tool?
Well, a detainer that we would lodge with the local law enforcement jurisdiction lets them know that when they are going to release that individual out to the public, that we would like to take custody of that. When we have detainers that are honored, we can go into a courthouse, we can go into a jail or a prison, and in a safe environment, take custody of that individual, take them to a detention center and remove them to their home country. When they don't honor our detainers, that individual is released out into the streets. And what we know for a fact is hundreds and hundreds of times, thousands of times across the country, those individuals reoffend. And what they're doing by not honoring detainers is creating more victims.
When ICE issues a detainer, you're not asking local officers to conduct immigration sweeps in neighborhoods. You're requesting simply notice before release or brief lawful hold so you can assume custody, right?
That is correct.
If ICE is requesting a short hold, that means that the individual is already in state or local custody.
Correct.
And individuals in jail are there because there was probable cause for arrest, and in many cases because they've been convicted of crimes, right?
Correct.
And so when these sanctuaries policies are enacted, they put the community at harm, they put your agents at risk, and even the perpetrator at risk. And Mr. Chairman, I'll yield back, but I have some UC requests.
Gentleman's recognized for UC.
Thank you. Radical rhetoric by sanctuary politicians leads to an unprecedented 1,300% increase in assaults against ICE officers and a 3,200% increase
Objection.
in vehicular attacks. Which sanctuary jurisdictions have released the most criminals?
Objection.
Virginia Governor Spanberger faces blowback after releasing illegal immigrant who stabbed a woman to death.
Objection.
Spanberger urged to cooperate with ICE after alleged killing by illegal immigrant.
Objection.
Sanctuary cities pose an unacceptable risk to public safety.
Objection.
When did safety become a license to defy the law? The dangers of sanctuary cities.
Objection.
The DHS shutdown, a reckless gamble verging on madness.
Objection.
Can we finally agree that sanctuary cities are a failed experiment?
Without objection.
The not so fine line between sanctuary and threat.
Objection.
DHS funding remains in limbo as GOP lawmakers warn of retaliatory terror attacks.
Objection.
Democrat rep whines about DHS harassing illegal alien he brought to State of the Union.
Objection.
New Maryland bill means more victims of migrant criminals, DHS warns.
Objection.
If you're an illegal, stabbing someone isn't enough for this country to lock you up.
Objection.
Coast Guard addresses recent media reporting.
Without objection.
Current shutdowns impact on immigration agencies from DHS.
Objection.
U.S. ICE examples of egregious criminal aliens released into Illinois.
Without objection.
The Independent police arrest and charge Rafael Govea Romero.
Without objection, I think the gentleman may set a record here.
Yeah.
Has set a record.
February 18th, 2026, response to Representative Gosar's letter from Secretary Noem.
Without objection.
Another response from Secretary Noem dated February 4th, 2026 to Gosar.
Without objection.
And also finally, DHS OIG highlights covert testing of TSA's checkpoint security screening effectiveness.
Without objection.
Thank you. Yield back.
Gentleman yields back. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Tennessee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Madam Secretary, welcome to the committee.
Thank you.
Gives me an opportunity to show you the 8 letters that I have sent to you over the last year, only one of which have been replied to. So it gives me an opportunity to ask you the questions and try to get an answer. One of the things you're most famous for, probably your quote of quotes, is we're going to go after the worst of the worst. The murderers, the pedophiles, the rapists, et cetera. In my letters, I said I agree with you on those things. People who are in this country illegally or not citizens who commit those crimes should be deported. But the facts show that most of the people that you have stopped and tried to deport have not committed any of those crimes. In fact, they've committed no crimes at all. I've got a study here from the Justice Department that shows that less than half as undocumented immigrants are less than half as likely as U.S.-born Americans to be arrested for homicide. And the pattern holds for assault, sexual assault, robbery, burglary, theft, and arson. And they're half as likely to be arrested for drug offenses. That's an NIJ study. In Tennessee, there was a study that was just in the Commercial Appeal, our local newspaper in Memphis, that shows the same, that they are very unlikely to commit offenses. For the folks that are here and your families, I'm sorry. It's terrible what happened to your children or your family members. But they are more likely, and citizens are more likely to be attacked by United States citizens who are not undocumented, who came here and are born here. They are more likely to commit these crimes. So why do you continue to talk about the worst and the worst when all the statistics show we're not stopping the worst and the worst? We're doing what Stephen Miller wants to do and set a record of deportations.
Can I respond to you now, sir?
I hope you will now.
Okay,
It's been
good.
a year.
Well, thank you for your letters, and we have responded to those. When I came into office, there was years of letters that Mayorkas did not respond to, that we had to backlog and respond to all the letters that he received as secretary. In fact, one of those letters was
I just want to hear about the letters I wrote you.
567 days old.
Just
that
tell
they
me
had to
about the
be
letters I wrote you.
I have responded to over 1,490 letters that I've gotten from members of Congress.
You could have done
in the last 12
1,498
months.
and done mine
That's
as well.
just individual letters. Sometimes they had 60 to 70 signatures on them, and we responded to every one of them.
Tell me about
So
the worst
we
of the
are-
worst.
The worst of the worst, sir. I think you've offended the families behind me today with that.
Did
comment.
not intend to, and I
Because
think
you
it's
were-
wrong for you to suggest it.
You're commenting on the fact that the individuals aren't violent reoffenders, and you keep talking about the fact that these individuals that are in this country illegally don't harm families. These
No, I didn't
families
say that. I
behind
said
me-
they're less likely than people born here. I
Well,
didn't say that they don't do it.
Vast majority of these people behind me lost their children due to drugs overdoses from drugs that came over the southern border. They died from their kids being hit on accidents on the roads that illegal drivers were driving. Truck drivers, Marcus Coleman and Delilah's father has told a story over and over again.
All that's true and a
about how that
given. That's
individual-
true and a given, Ms. Noem, but you say you're only going after the worst of the worst, and you're not.
are.
Go
We're
after the worst
targeting-
of the worst. And if you did, people wouldn't find your
They're
department to be the
targeting-
worst department in the United States of America.
We do targeted enforcement based on intelligence and go after the worst of the worst. When we are on those enforcement actions, if there are people with those individuals, we confirm their identities as well to make sure that they have legal status in our country. We need to make sure that people understand that when you come into this country illegally, overstay a student visa, if you don't go in for your
I'm going to
court
reclaim my time
appearances,
because
if you're out of legal
I'm
status,
reclaiming my
then you need
time,
to
Madam
go home.
Secretary, please. That's one issue. Another issue is the fact of training. And an ICE Academy has Ryan Schwank, a former instructor and immigration and customs enforcement attorney, joined ICE in 2021 and resigned February 13 because he wanted people to know that he received secretive orders to teach new cadets to violate the Constitution by entering homes without a judicial warrant. He says the time, the studies, the constitutional law and deadly force have all been cut down. Instead of doing 8 hours a day, they do 12 hours a day. You've
Sir, the
increased.
gentleman you're referencing was detailed to FLETC for training for a couple of months. He's a trial attorney. He was never there before we changed the curriculum. He was only there for a couple of months after we had changed it and made sure that it was 6 days a week, 12 hours a day. All of the individuals received all the training they did before.
I've got
and
27
more.
seconds left.
They also
Let me-
received
27
training.
seconds left. I'll reclaim my time. I taught police law. You get more learning in the less time you give them. If you more time, they learn less because their brains start to go other places. Do you have any people that you've hired who were January 6 offenders?
Not that I know of.
Can you go in your records and tell me if anybody who you hired was a January 6 offender?
I'll get back to you on that.
Thank you.
Gentleman's
Yield back
time
the
has
balance.
expired. Mr. Massey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secretary Noem, I'd be remiss if I didn't take this opportunity to thank you for your service as governor during the COVID epidemic, when so many governors and mayors used their power to limit freedoms. I think you, along with Ron DeSantis, exercised great discretion by trusting the people that you worked for, basically your citizens, to make their own decisions about vaccines and mandates and lockdowns. So my hat's off to you for your service there. And I know the job you have now is extremely difficult. Today here on the dais, it's going to be partisan, I know that. But keep in mind that the majority of Americans support the work that you all are doing. And we want to make it easier, and we want to make it safer for the citizens and for your officers who are carrying out this difficult work. So one of my questions is deals with body cameras. I've talked to my local law enforcement, sheriffs and police departments in my district, Republicans and Democrats who hold those offices, and almost unanimously they support body cameras, and so do the officers and deputies who work for them, because they believe it protects the officers as much as it protects the citizens who may be offending the law in some way and need to be arrested. So I want to ask you for an update on body cameras and your opinion on that. That's something that the Democrats have demanded, but it's something that I think might just be common sense. So what's your thought on body cameras?
Yes, we certainly are working to get body cameras on all of our officers. CBP has had them on many of their agents that interact with people for the last several years, but they haven't been many times supported financially for running the systems that run the body cameras. Also, ICE has body cameras deployed, but we're not funded for body cameras right now. So that's one thing I'd like to ask you all to do. I have said that we will deploy every body camera that we have, and we are doing that. I think we now today maybe have 14,000 body cameras on agents that are out doing enforcement. But clearly we need tens of thousands more, and we need to be able to maintain them, have the analyzers that can go through the video to make sure that it is a situation that it's analyzed for these investigations. And I agree with you. Our officers overwhelmingly, we train 130 different federal agencies and law enforcement officers at FLETC under the Department of Homeland Security. Overwhelmingly, they support body cameras because they give you the full context of the interaction. It's just not a snippet of 10 seconds that gets posted on the internet that people are trying to make claims on what really happened there. It'll give you the full context of the interaction to know that these officers and prove out that they followed their training.
So as a former member of Congress, I appreciate that you respect that we have the power of the purse. I do think we have allocated enough money, the current shutdown notwithstanding, to DHS, but perhaps we need to go, and ICE, perhaps we need to go back and make sure that your use of that money for body cameras wouldn't violate.
You were pretty prescriptive in how you assigned that dollars to us, even though ICE got $75 million. It was pretty prescriptive towards detention centers, contracts and airframe in order to move individuals out of the country. And so the body cams and their maintenance ongoing into appropriation bills into the future needs to be addressed.
I know it costs money to keep all that video around, and that's what my local law enforcement talks about. The ones who haven't adopted them, they just can't afford to keep the records like they're supposed to. But I hope we make sure that you have the funding for body cameras. I've only got about a minute left, but there was a memo about whether you need an administrative warrant or a judicial warrant to enter into residences. And you know, I'm a strong proponent of the Fourth Amendment, and I think it would be helpful if we stuck to that. I know there are exigent circumstances sometimes where you're in pursuit or something of somebody, but I think for entering a residence or private property, it would be helpful to have judicial warrants. I give you 30 seconds to give us your opinion on that.
Well, I would tell you that all of our officers and at the department, we follow the Constitution and respect the amendments. The Fourth Amendment's incredibly important. In the 400,000 different instances where we've detained someone under administrative warrant, only 28 of those have been used to go into a home. So it's very rare, not very often. It is legal, it is justified, and it is the tool that you have given us as a body and that the Supreme Court has confirmed. So we do use it, but it's very rare when we do.
All right, with that, I yield back to the chairman.
Gentleman yields back. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Georgia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secretary Noem, last month, your Immigration and Customs Enforcement Director, Todd Lyons, confirmed that the Department of Homeland Security is conducting an investigation into the brutal, cruel, and senseless killings of Renee Good and Alex Preddy. Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension Superintendent Drew Evans loudly and publicly complained when, in the minutes and hours after your agents shot Alex Preddy to death in broad daylight, your DHS agents excluded BCA and Minneapolis police from accessing the crime scene. Your agents continued to physically block state and local law enforcement access to the crime scene even after they were presented with a search warrant issued by a judge that authorized their appearance at that location, the crime scene. And so with you having excluded them, that left your department's agents uniquely positioned to clandestinely seize and control all of the physical evidence from the crime scene, including body camera footage, phones, firearms, ballistic evidence, and other physical evidence. Your attempts to hide the evidence from state and local law enforcement forced Minnesota officials to go into federal court to obtain a temporary restraining order, preventing you from destroying or altering the evidence and ordering you to preserve the evidence. Madam Secretary, who was it that ordered you to deny state and local law enforcement agency access to the Alex Preddy crime scene? Was it Donald Trump? Was it Pam Bondi? Was it Kash Patel? Or was it Corey? Whose idea was it?
Congressman, I will tell you, it is not my role as the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security to conduct investigations at the federal level.
I'm
That happens
asking,
at the
who
Department
was
of
it that
Justice.
instructed
Those
your
decisions are
agents
made,
to
and
deny access to the crime scene to state and local law enforcement
I
agencies?
wish there would have been more local law enforcement there that day. The reason that
Well, they were there, but
such
your
a violent
agency
scene was because we
prevented them
didn't have
from
local law
accessing the
enforcement out
crime
there
scene.
supporting.
Who was
the
it that gave that order to deny access to the crime scene?
Sir, I don't make those decisions on
Well, who made
investigations at
who made the
federal level. I will
decision?
tell
Was
you
it
that
was
within
it
the
whose
agency,
decision was it?
within the agency, for incidences,
Was
that
it
there is
Corey's
internal
idea?
investigations that go through the office of
Okay, well, you're not
PR,
gonna
and then also
answer.
beyond
You're
that,
not gonna answer my
the
question.
ICE
That's
goes to
fine,
the
ma'am.
incident.
I'm going to reclaim my time. As the Secretary of Homeland Security, you are the ultimate overseer of your department's investigations into the death of Renee Good and Alex Preddy. Isn't that correct?
We conduct investigations within ICE and CBP.
Okay,
that are
fine. You're
internal
responsible for it. That was my
and to
question.
the officers to make sure they follow their
Within
protocols and
hours
training.
of these killings, you jumped before the cameras on national TV and lied about these victims, labeling them domestic terrorists before the investigation had even begun. Even your own ICE director has now admitted that they are not terrorists, and that kind of comment could bias the investigation. Secretary Noem, will you acknowledge that your lies labeling Ms. Good and Mr. Preddy as domestic terrorists could bias the DHS investigation into their killings?
These investigations are ongoing. They're
Well, couldn't your
external.
comments have
The
signaled
Incident Review
what
Committee
the
within
conclusion of
ICE
the
will determine
investigation
any
should
actions
be?
that will take it, and within CBP, it's the National Use of Force Board that
what-
does those
What you
evaluations.
did
They'll
was actually
continue to do
prejudice
that.
the investigations that your department is conducting, Madam Secretary. And, you know, it's no mistake. Your department has a pattern of obstructing investigations. A federal judge has lambasted your ICE director for lying in court. And you, the Inspector General, just yesterday revealed to the public, your own Inspector General, who was appointed by Trump, has revealed that your department has been obstructing his independent investigations into your department and into your department's ability to investigate others.
That is not true. In that letter
Yeah,
that
I
he sent to
mean,
the Hill yesterday.
I want to
he has the freedom to brief
enter
members of
into the
Congress who
record
told him that.
for
We have that in
unanimous
writing as
consent,
well.
2 articles that document the fact that the
Gentleman's recognized.
Inspector General says that DHS has systematically obstructed its work. It's a Wall Street Journal article dated March 3rd, yesterday.
Without objection.
And also a Politico article, internal DHS watchdog, Noem, is obstructing our work.
Without objection.
How can the public
No,
think that you will give?
Gentleman's time has expired. You've asked for 2 unanimous consent requests. Without objection, those are into the record. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Wisconsin, Mr. Fitzgerald.
Secretary Noem, thanks for being here today. Despite the undeniable increase in terrorist threats at the border and in the interior of the United States, Alejandro Mayorkas repeatedly misled this committee and the American people by asserting that aliens entering our country were being properly vetted and screened. When I asked him many times about whether or not the border was secure, his response was, secure did not mean migration had stopped. It simply meant that resources had been deployed, enforcement processes were in place, and legal authorities were being used in a proper way. Completely ridiculous. My question is related to the vetting process, though. Can you just elaborate a little bit on how you had to reform and change that process compared to where we were under Secretary Mayorkas?
Well, if you're talking in specifics to programs under USCIS that were being utilized by the Biden administration to allow access into our country, we have put on pause a hold on green cards and naturalizations from 39 different countries of interest that the president had identified with the State Department. And Operation Allies Welcome has been a huge conversation as well. Those individuals are being re-vetted, and they're being re-vetted by going back and interviewing them. Under the refugee program, every year there's to be an in-person interview conducted in order to keep that status and to see if this individual is working to become a legal permanent resident or not. That was not happening at all. There was no interviews happening. There was no looking at social media and what they were out there putting on the internet as far as thoughts and opinions and how they were being successful assimilating into getting a job, or how their kids were doing in school. Those things, all that vetting is being done, and background information now to make new determinations on individuals, not just that were here under that program, but that came in under the Biden administration, that we know that due diligence on vetting wasn't done.
So there's another small change I hope you can just discuss, and that is former border chief and now with CBP Commissioner Rodney Scott. He testified to our committee in 2023 that an illegal alien was only screened against U.S. criminal databases and not against databases from the alien countries of origin, which makes no sense.
That's
I
correct.
mean, obviously, somebody that didn't live in the States suddenly crosses the border illegally, and the only thing that they had been utilizing was some kind of database, which obviously did not include the individual that illegally crossed. I'm wondering, that must have been something you eliminated almost immediately or changed. I'm just wondering if you could discuss that.
No, we do all that due diligence now, and it's very difficult to get adequate vetting from a country that doesn't have a stable government as well. So when there is that situation and they can't provide you with any information, that individual is not allowed to participate in any of the programs that would allow them to be here on a workman's visa or a student visa or information. If we can't do that vetting ahead of time and know truly who that person is and why they're in the United States, they're not admitted. And one thing I would say is that since I've been secretary, we've signed dozens of security agreements with other countries. With Central and South America, we have to share information to be able to give us their criminal. I've gone there and had them come here so that we could agree to share that information in the future. In the Middle East, incredible partnership on getting access to that. CBP has one of the world's largest databases of information on travelers around the world, and how we cooperate and coordinate with these other countries helps us know when they're coming into our country. And I even negotiated the first extradition out of Honduras to help an angel family here in the United States to prosecute someone who was just convicted the other day of 21 years in prison for murdering Sarah Root. And that's the first time that country had ever extradited anybody for murder to the United States. And so by engaging on these cases, we not only get closure for families and justice for them, but we also do due diligence on who's in this country and what their intentions are when they get here.
And just the final thing I would ask you to comment on. The face-to-face interviews are critical, right?
They are.
And they were not being done under the Biden administration at all.
They were not.
And it can be a brief interaction, but oftentimes it's when they determine whether or not this person is in the States and in a good status. Is that not true?
That is true, and they placed a lot of weight on a letter of recommendation from another agency. So many times, some of the other protocols were not checked if they just had a letter of recommendation from someone else in the federal government. We've stopped that, and even if we do get someone who recommends someone as a refugee, we still vet them thoroughly.
Thank you. I yield back, Chairman.
Thank you. I recognize the gentleman from California, Mr. Swalwell.
Secretary, you have referenced many times the families behind you, and I see the families, and I see your pain, and I see your loss. I see those who are still with us but have been hurt and changed. And I'm sorry that this has happened to you. And I see you, I know my colleagues see you, our country sees you. And I thank you for being here today. Secretary, my question for you is, do you see families like Miguel Lopez, who was a neighbor of mine in Livermore, California? Miguel had lived in Livermore for over 30 years. He raised his 3 children in Livermore. His youngest is a senior at a local high school, just finished his football season. Miguel worked at a winery where my wife and I were married almost 10 years ago. Miguel had done everything that was asked of him, went to every immigration proceeding that he was supposed to go to, and in April was put in handcuffs as he was following the orders of the court and going to the proceedings. He was arrested and sent to Mexico over a judge's objection that he not be sent to Mexico and he stay in the United States. Every Sunday night, his wife Rosa and the family have a dinner, and there's an empty chair at the dinner table. Miguel's not there. I went and saw Miguel in Mexico. He doesn't have a job. He's not able to provide. And he said his Spanish isn't even that great because he hasn't been there for 30 years and it's hard for him to communicate. Do you see the pain of families like Miguel Lopez, someone who did not commit a violent crime but has been separated from his family and is not providing, is not working? Do
Congressman,
you see that pain?
did he have a criminal record?
Did Mr. Lopez have a criminal record? In 1995, he pled to a lesser nonviolent charge. But do you see the pain
I
that
do
somebody?
see the pain, and
Okay.
I wish people would do things correctly. If they're not in legal status in this country, they can return home. We will pay for them to return
Yeah.
home. I hope he got the $2,600 he could
Do you
have
think
gotten.
that makes up for
I
not
think
being with his
it
family?
helps. It helps because we have agreements with these countries where they are helping to facilitate housing.
It was a
and
nonviolent
training,
crime, Secretary.
But then he gets the chance to come back the right way. Now that he's waited until he's been detained and deported, he will never get the chance to come back to the United States.
It was a
And so I wish that
nonviolent.
he would have made the right decision and decided to go home to help his family and him to be together. They have choices that they can make to be together, and we're hopeful that they will continue to do that.
The president also, by the way, is a convicted felon, if you want to talk about criminal records. Secretary Noem, did you or your staff fire one of your pilots recently?
No,
No pilot was relieved of their duty?
no.
The
Not
story in
that
the,
I'm aware of.
so the story, and recognizing you're under oath, the story in the Wall Street Journal was incorrect.
That individual was not fired. Do you know how many years it takes to get a military officer to be fired? That story was
Was he asked to not
completely
fly the
inaccurate.
next day?
It was not accurate. And I was surprised that the Wall Street Journal would print that many inaccuracies in one article.
Well, the Wall Street Journal is not a liberal newspaper of record. Well, tell me
I don't know
then,
what it is anymore.
tell me then, has a single ICE agent or CBC officer, has a single ICE agent or CBP officer been disciplined since you've been Secretary of Homeland Security? As we've seen women dragged through their streets by their hair and thrown into unmarked cars, people chased through the fields and factories where they work, public executions happening in our streets. Has a single ICE agent or CBP officer been disciplined?
Yes, they have.
How many?
I don't know the number. I can get that for you if
Do you
you'd
think that
like me
number is
to.
important?
I think that it's wise and smart, and what we're doing is accurate according to the law by doing those internal investigations through the process that's set up. There's an Office of Professional Responsibility that does the investigation, and decisions are brought before the National Use of Force Board, and they review each incident as objectively outside of that law enforcement encounter, and then give a decision for
Has
it.
anyone been fired? Has anyone lost their job?
There could be.
Well,
I
I'm not
did-
asking if it could be, I'm asking, has anyone been fired?
I'm certain that they have. That happens once in a while when there is a need for someone to be.
For conduct related
accountable.
to enforcement actions?
We hold our law enforcement officers accountable and are grateful that they serve, that they put their lives on the line, and also recognize that when these situations that they follow their training and the legality of the course to how they interact with the public.
Yield back.
Gentleman yields. I recognize the gentleman from Wisconsin, Mr. Tiffany.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Madam Secretary, how many countries does your department currently list as recalcitrant? That's question one. Question two, have you notified the State Department of those countries' status? And let me set the question before you answer.
All right, you've been watching the
Question one,
Department of Homeland
how many
Security
others
Secretary
recalcitrant
Kristi
have you
Noem
notified the State Department? So
testifying,
at
I
the end of
guess
the
if you want to call it that, before the House Judiciary Committee. You just heard California Congressman Eric Swalwell grilling Noem on her department and whether or not officers and agents of her department have been disciplined. As we've seen ICE run wild in the streets of American cities in this country. She was very evasive in those answers. And as we've seen all morning long, the secretary, is not really playing it straight with the American people. She is not, in my view, being very honest with the American people about just about anything, and dodging a lot of questions from members of Congress. There was one key moment, I think, that really sums up how all of this has been going. The Maryland Democrat, Jamie Raskin, was grilling Kristi Noem on whether or not federal agents in her department can just kill people. Let's play a little bit of that and talk about it on the other side.
Is it lawful for federal agents to shoot and kill a person for engaging in peaceful protest and nothing else? That's a yes or no question.
Each instances in peaceful protest, no, it's not.
Okay,
But I
good.
would say
Is it lawful for federal agents to shoot and kill a person for filming them on a public street? Yes or no?
no.
Okay. Is it lawful for federal agents to shoot and kill a person just because that person is lawfully carrying a holstered firearm under the Second Amendment in state law?
No.
And finally, yes or no, is it lawful for federal agents to shoot an innocent person or even a criminal suspect just for driving away from them, according to the Supreme Court?
No.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you got the law right, and I hope you would rethink what you said about two good, honest, faithful American citizens and what that means to their families when you say that as Secretary of Homeland Security. And your ICE guy has already retracted that, and you should retract it too. I yield back to you, Mr.
So there's Kristi Noem being grilled by Jamie Raskin about referring to Renee Good and other members of the administration referring to Renee Good and Alex Preddy as domestic terrorists after they were shot and killed by agents of the Department of Homeland Security. Obviously, you know, Kristi Noem, when she was asked those questions by Jamie Raskin, was confirming that no, they can't just shoot people in the streets. And it makes you wonder, following up on what Eric Swalwell was asking earlier, why haven't these officers and agents who have been involved in the shootings and killings of people like Alex Preddy and Renee Good, why haven't they been investigated? Why haven't they been disciplined? Why haven't they been charged with a crime? Those are the kinds of questions coming out of this hearing, and I want to thank my team for bringing this hearing to you this morning. We saw all of the fireworks going off yesterday during the grilling of Kristi Noem by members of the United States Senate. So we thought it was important that we showcase how things are going over in the House this morning. We've got lots planned later today at 4 o'clock. Make sure you're tuning in for our usual time, and we'll see you later on today. Thanks for tuning into this coverage this morning. We'll see you next time. Still reporting from Washington, I'm Jim Acosta.